thank you guys for gathering today. We wanted to have a brief discussion about the child care crisis that's happening in the state of Missouri. First and foremost, I want to thank all of our providers and families who've been reaching out to our offices to let us know that the state of Missouri is behind so much in their payments. Because of all of the constituents who reached out to our offices, my office sent a letter to both the Speaker of the House and the Commissioner of DESE asking for an investigation into this. For the Speaker, we asked him to hold a hearing so that we could ask our questions. So I do want to say thank you to Speaker Dean Plocker for allowing us to do so, and the chairman of both committees to allow some time to dig in. Unfortunately, today was just the tip of the iceberg and yesterday in terms of digging into this crisis that's happening. Some of the things we learned is, of course, that the department knew about this as late as December. And of course, we were not notified until midsummer when constituents started reaching out to us. We would ask the department for what was going on and being told that we would have resolution for our folks' payments within 24 to 48 hours. And of course, that is not what we're seeing today. I still stand by the fact that the department could cut checks today to our providers to keep them whole. We've learned that 53 providers have closed their doors in the last year because of this problem, and of course that is completely unacceptable. This is just yet another crisis that we continue to see from the administration and from the state, whether it was the METIS problems with Medicaid that lots of folks are familiar with from several years ago, to losing over 1,000 kids in our foster care system, to kicking kids off Medicaid who qualified for Medicaid. The list goes on and on, where we continue to see a failure from the administration of putting Missouri citizens first. We have an immediate solution that can be made any day now for the department to issue funds to these folks to be able to keep their doors open, but even doing that is not enough. That is the first thing that needs to happen. We need to continue to dig in, find out where the IT issue is here, figure out why these folks continue to get contracts, why we are continuing to pay them millions of dollars when they are not delivering to our citizens, and really hold these tax dollars accountable, and continue to dig in and find a solution so that we're not in this situation again. Before any of this began, Missouri was in a child care crisis. We have so many families who can't find providers. There are no child care spaces left anymore in our state, and then our providers are struggling because they cannot pay their staff living wages and keep their doors open. Now the state of Missouri is yet again failing to deliver the funds that are necessary. But I will pause there. We have several members who have been digging into this that I want to give some space to. We'll start with Representative Lavender if you want to jump forward about some of the questions that you have been trying to get answers to.
Thank you, Leader Quaid. I'm certainly concerned with the procurement process and how we are landing on worldwide technology over and over and over again. Carasoft is on the NASPO, National Association of Providers, but I don't think they're on our prime vendor list. What happened? What was the difference between when Commissioner Steelman was here to the current people that are in office right now? And how are these procurements going out? So very concerned with how we just are getting the contracts to begin with that are leading to just ultimate failure in so many arenas in our state. Thank you again, Madam Leader.
Thank you. And I'd like to hand it over to Representative Hine, who's also been sitting into some of the committee hearings.
Yeah, I think, Leader Quaid really hit it on the head. This is an issue that we know has been brewing for several months. It came through clearly that there is an easy way to address the problem if we switch over from paying to enrollment rather than attendance. That's an issue that we brought forward even in January, filed legislation to do so, and have not been able to do that. Whenever providers say what's one of the biggest obstacles, that's it. And if we can make that change over sooner rather than later, we help providers and we help get some of those kiddos back into their services.
Thank you. So I'll wrap it up with, again, we are in a crisis right now, and the folks in charge and here in the state of Missouri are not making this a priority in my mind. These hearings were great, but we were told today and yesterday that the resolution will be coming in 4 to 8 weeks. Providers have been being told that since January. We know in 4 to 8 weeks we will be having elections. And then it'll move on to the next thing. And these folks are going to continue to get away with not meeting the basic promises to Missouri citizens of paying these bills that are long overdue and allowing these providers to keep their doors open and provide services to our family. And so what I hope that folks who are listening to this will do, continue, if you are a provider or a parent, continue to reach out to our offices and let us know what's going on. Let us know how many tens of thousands of dollars you are owed by the state of Missouri, because we're going to do our best to hold their feet to the fire. These folks can write checks today and make these folks whole. It will not be everything that they're owed. There might be some discrepancies in these dollars, but the point is that Our providers are closing their doors. We have folks who are taking out personal loans who can't even keep their own personal lights on right now because of what the state of Missouri is doing. And this is disgusting. It's another crisis and another failure from the leadership here in our state, and we deserve better than this. That we're happy to take questions.
You obviously talked to a lot of people across the state. There's a lot of issues that people care about. How important is this to the people that you're talking to, especially parents with young kids?
Absolutely. Childcare is one of the #1 things that I have heard, not just on this campaign, but for the years that I have been serving as a state representative. Childcare access and affordability is a huge problem. I was grateful, honestly, that Governor Parson a couple years ago started to talk about this as a priority. But as we've seen from the Republicans, they have done nothing to advance any legislation that's going to help our parents and help our providers with this crisis, then compounding it with this on top of it, where yet again we are failing the state of Missouri and its people to get the dollars out the door that are promised. It's a catastrophic situation. We were told yesterday about a family that was denied approval and the money didn't get sent to the child care facility. And so then 2 young children were left at home. One of those kids picked up a gun and killed the other child. That is obviously we could talk about all of the issues of what happened there, but the fact is that those kids did not have a safe place to go, and because of that, we lost another Missouri child. This is not just about dollars and people paying their bills. This is truly life and death for our kids. This is truly an economic problem for our families because they can't go to work. They're dropping out of school because there is nowhere safe to send their kids. So yes, this is a problem in every corner of Missouri.
You had asked Governor Parson, I don't remember if you had asked for a special session on this, but certainly you had asked for action. What have you gotten from the governor's office and the majority?
So we actually sent a letter to the commissioner of DESE asking for some resolution and offered some ideas on things that could be done. I have not received a letter back. In fact, yesterday I asked the commissioner if she had seen it and asked some of the questions and was told, I could have picked up the phone instead of sending a letter. But of course, we are working and diligent to try to get these solutions out the door, but I don't feel like those questions had been answered. The other letter that I did send was to the speaker asking for an investigation into this, and fortunately he did grant us this, but I hope it doesn't stop today.
Do you think there should be a special session?
That is I don't know if it's a yes or no question, because to be honest with you, the authority rests with the department. We have already allocated the $174 million to cover the child care subsidy program for this fiscal year. They have the authority to write checks right now to these providers, and they're refusing to do so because they want to wait until the IT problem is fixed so that they know the exact amounts that are owed to these people. While at the same time, they're issuing stipends because they know there's a crisis. But if they're able to issue those stipends, they could be able to issue a $75,000 check to these providers that we know they are owed, and then we could figure that out on the back end. I feel like that's just a lazy response, to be honest with you. So do we need a special session to do that? No, we don't. We don't need to waste another couple $100,000 on a special session when their office already has the authority to do that. What the governor could do is apply pressure to his administration and tell them to fix this problem.
Are you saying that the problems created right now by these systematic administrative problems are a far and away bigger issue than would be created by paying some providers for a few extra kids?
So we've been told that the reason we are here is because of the IT system that they decided to move over to. So if y'all remember, the governor by executive order moved the child care subsidy program out of Department of Social Services over to the elementary and secondary education department. Why he did that, I do not know, but that was a choice that he made. And with that, there have been changes to the IT program, and that's where we're being told is the issue at hand, is that this multi-million-dollar contract that we've given to these individuals, they are failing at. While they're still asking us for more money, they're not delivering on what we've already paid them to do. So that is what we're told is the problem. That's fine, dandy, whatever. They said it's gonna be a few more months before the IT issue gets solved. I am not an IT expert. I can't tell you if that's legitimate or not. But where the second piece of this problem is in the meantime, while they're trying to figure out this multi-million-dollar mess that we've given to whomever, friends of whomever, whatever, we could have a whole conversation about that. But while they're working on that IT issue, we have providers, child care providers, who are closing their doors. In fact, 53 of them that we know of so far. We have providers who are suffering and taking out personal loans with interest that they're never going to get recouped by the state. And of course, we have families in crisis. And so what I would like to see is that immediate Band-Aid, for lack of a better word, to get some dollars out the door to these folks so that they could keep providing care to our kids.
We heard the amount, $84.3 million, as like the rough figure of, I believe, how much is outstanding payments. Do you believe that's the full amount, to say nothing of like the secondary impact, the loan interest and stuff like that?
I honestly can't answer if that's the full amount or not. Even the director today couldn't answer what that number was, and they're claiming that's part of the IT problem. What I do know is that we have a set of childcare providers that are already within contract of the state. We know who they are. We could issue checks to them today based on last month's payment, based on previous enrollment, based on whatever we want it to be. And then we have providers who are in limbo right now who are waiting on approval to be part of the contracted situation. I would guess, I think they said an additional 80-something new providers have been entered in that are in limbo right now. We could also issue payments to those folks. And when the data problem is fixed, we could figure out, did we overpay? Did we underpay? And what does that look like? Some of these providers that were here yesterday told me that they were given letters by the department that they had been overpaid, and so that they needed to pay the money back within 30 days, mind you, which we can be almost a year behind with our payments, but they have to pay back immediately. And so we have the ability within this IT system that they're talking about to say, you owe us money. And so we absolutely have the ability to just write the checks and then figure those numbers out later.
Shifting gears
Yeah.
really briefly, with yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, I was wondering if you could weigh in on, how important is Missouri's next governor and then obviously Missouri's next lawmaker, how important is that to actually, like, if this amendment passes, allowing abortion to return to the state? I don't know if you can weigh in on that a little
Yeah,
bit.
absolutely. I think that is one of the most important, if not the most important discussions. So thank you for that question. We're obviously grateful that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the citizens having their voices heard. This is something we know 380,000 Missourians signed a petition in less than 3 months saying they want to vote on this. And so the fact that the extremists on the other side of this conversation continue to time and time again try to take the ability for Missourians' voices to be heard is just quite frankly disgusting. And I'm really glad that the Supreme Court ruled that we can move forward with this. But to your point, it is absolutely imperative that whoever we elect as our next governor, as our next legislative bodies, are folks who will uphold the will of voters. We have seen time and time again in the state of Missouri that the Republicans do not care what citizens have to say. Whether it was Medicaid expansion and we had to take it all the way to the Supreme Court to mandate that these guys pay for it, whether it was the minimum wage that the St. Louis voters said that they wanted and then they came back and said, no, we're not going to let you do that. Right to work, the list goes on and on, where they do not care what voters have to say. And that's why they continue to attack the initiative petition process and take that ability away from Missouri citizens to have their voices heard. And so it is absolutely important that we elect a governor who will respect the will of voters and uphold this disgusting abortion ban that we have in our state.
Why do you think that voters have continued to elect Republicans into power while at the same time supporting those kinds of initiative petitions?
I think that's a multifaceted answer. The first thing that I'll say is that as Democrats, we have to take responsibility for our failures in messaging here and showing up in spaces where we haven't been in a long time. I am so proud that because of the work of these folks behind me, we have more Democrats running than we have had since 2010. And that's a big part of this conversation is we need to be present in communities saying that we're the ones fighting for your rights. We're the ones who agree with you that these things are problems in our state. And so I think we have to take a lot of that responsibility. The other thing that I would say is, folks in Missouri are divided in how they stand on issues and people. We are not a one-party state. We have folks who will have my yard sign right next to Donald Trump's yard signs in the same yard, and that's okay. And we have to be willing to have those conversations with folks where we can find that common ground.
I'm wondering if Representative Lavender can kind of talk a little bit about the budget override that you attempted and kind of your response to that.
Well, just wanted to bring voice to the lack of being able to care for our seniors. And this is year after year. We see it in the budget every year. And so to attempt to raise that voice once again for our citizens in nursing homes that aren't being cared for. And so to give that voice once more.
And what do you make of that override not passing?
There's no surprise in a Democrat asking to overrule the governor that failed. There's no surprise in that.
And I'm wondering too if you can tell us a little bit more. You talked about it this morning with the vendor contract with the child care subsidy. Can you kind of tell us a little bit more about what you think happened there and kind of what you've been looking into?
I will say I don't know what's happened there. I do know that I see where we reach out for bids and how there seems to be an alteration in how we obtain bids for some of our IT projects. It does seem as if there's been a wider path from OA and ITSD personnel directly to Worldwide Technology. I think you all will do a little bit of research and see, the phrase is follow the money. And does that influence what's happening in this building? I'm not sure, but I think it's worth exploring and investigating, especially when time after time we have a failure of the systems that we've contracted with these people to provide for us.
Any other questions?
If you indulge me with a Kansas City question really quick. In your campaign, you talked about fighting to keep the Chiefs in Missouri. Is this something that Governor Parsons should call a special on, or is this like a next session?
Well, as I've said many times, we are way behind the 8 ball in having this conversation. Should he call a special session? He should have dealt with this during session. We should have been at the table for this very, very early on. We know that Kansas and Governor Kelly and their legislature have already put together a package that they're offering. And so, yes, I would welcome the conversation here to figure out what we want to do as a state to keep our Super Bowl winning team here in Missouri.
Is your understanding that the administration can do something, or does it require legislative action?
You know, I think it depends on what Governor Parson would offer and want that to look like. I would hope that he would allow legislative input. I personally think that we've seen his executive orders don't always work and aren't always the best decision, and so I would prefer that it go through a legislative session so that we could get public input on this. Look, you know, Kansas City offered their own version of an incentive program that the voters didn't want. And so we as a legislative body, as the government, I think should be taking in that input from the citizens and put together a package that keeps the team here, but not on the back of regular taxpayers to bail out billionaires. But I do think that there is a solution here, and so I would prefer that it go through a legislative session. Okay. Well, it's my last day as the Democratic leader in the House. Thank you.